The American lottery obsession. In the United States, the lottery is more than just a game, it's a national obsession. Every year, Americans spend tens of billions of dollars chasing the dream of instant riches. Scratch tickets, Powerball, Mega Millions, state lotteries, these games fill gas stations, convenience stores, and grocery aisles from coast to coast. The hope that a tiny slip of paper or a set of numbers might transform a life overnight is powerful, almost magical. For many, buying a lottery ticket is a harmless thrill, a momentary escape from the humdrum routine of daily life. For others, it's a desperate gamble, a bet against the crushing odds, fueled by stories of winners who turned their lives around with a single lucky draw. The dream of winning the jackpot becomes a beacon of hope, especially in communities facing economic hardship. The scale of America's lottery spending is staggering. According to industry reports, Americans collectively spend over $80 billion annually on lottery tickets. This amounts to roughly $250 per person, including children and the elderly, a figure that reveals the deep cultural penetration of the lottery. It's not just a pastime. For many, it's a habit, and for some, it's an addiction. Yet, despite the massive popularity, the odds of winning the big prize are astronomically low. For instance, the odds of hitting the Powerball jackpot are roughly 1 in 292 million, far less likely than being struck by lightning or becoming a Hollywood star. Mega Millions offers similar odds, around 1 in 302 million. Scratch-off games, while offering better chances, rarely provide life-changing amounts. Experts caution players to see the lottery as entertainment, not investment. The expected value of most lottery tickets is negative, meaning statistically, you lose money over time. But logic rarely wins over hope. The promise of wealth, no matter how improbable, is an irresistible lure. This tension between hope and reality sets the stage for one of the most extraordinary lottery stories in recent American history, a tale of deception, insider fraud, and a seemingly unbeatable scam that shook the lottery world to its core. It all began in Iowa, a state with a proud tradition of running a transparent and well-respected lottery system. The Iowa lottery was known for fairness and strict security protocols. It had built public trust over decades, making its games popular and its jackpots highly anticipated. On a chilly December night in 2010, something extraordinary happened. The Hot Lotto game, a multi-state lottery played in Iowa and several other states, offered a jackpot of $16.5 million. The drawing was conducted as usual, with balls tumbling inside a machine, their numbers selected in a public broadcast watched by eager players across the region. When the numbers were announced, the winning combination was clear. The jackpot belonged to whoever held the matching ticket. But then came the surprise. No one came forward to claim the prize. Lottery jackpots of this size rarely go unclaimed. Winners typically rush to lottery offices, lawyers, or trusted friends to secure their windfall. But days passed, then weeks, and still, the $16.5 million remained unclaimed. The Iowa lottery officials grew puzzled and concerned. This strange silence sparked rumors and speculation. Had someone lost the ticket? Was it stolen? Was there foul play? The mystery of the unclaimed jackpot became a sensation, covered extensively by local media and followed closely by lottery players hoping for a happy ending. Behind the scenes, Iowa Lottery CEO Terry Rich faced mounting pressure. He had to balance transparency with the need to protect the integrity of the lottery. Public trust was paramount. The idea that millions of dollars were at stake and no winner had come forward was unsettling. Investigations began quietly. Lottery officials checked ticket sales, scrutinized surveillance footage, and searched for any leads. Yet, no one seemed to know who had the winning ticket, or where it was. This puzzling situation was just the beginning. What followed would become one of the most complex and fascinating lottery scandals ever uncovered, a story that would expose vulnerabilities in lottery systems, reveal the dark side of human greed, and forever change how lotteries were run in the United States. As the unclaimed jackpot story unfolded, It captivated the public imagination. Everyone wondered, who was the mysterious winner? Why hadn't they come forward? And most importantly, was the jackpot truly unclaimed, or was someone hiding in the shadows, ready to claim their fortune through less than honest means? In the world of lotteries, where chance rules supreme, sometimes the biggest surprise isn't the numbers drawn, it's the human stories behind them. The saga of the Iowa Hot Lotto jackpot was about to prove just that. The mystery deepens. The $16.5 million Hot Lotto jackpot sat untouched, a ghost prize haunting the Iowa lottery headquarters. As days turned into weeks, the unclaimed jackpot wasn't just a curiosity, it became a glaring problem. Iowa lottery officials scrambled to understand what had happened. Had the winning ticket been lost? Destroyed? Or worse, stolen? The first step was to trace the ticket's origin. The Hot Lotto game was multi-state, played in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and a few other states. But the winning ticket had to be sold somewhere, somehow. By law, every winning ticket is scanned and verified by lottery retailers and the central system. The lottery's records showed the ticket was indeed sold, but the buyer was a mystery. The ticket had been purchased at a convenience store in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. The clerk remembered the sale. It was a cold December evening, and a man had bought just a single ticket. No fanfare, no excitement. Just a quick transaction. Lottery investigators began reviewing security camera footage from the store. The images showed a man in a hooded jacket, his face partially obscured, buying the ticket. His features were indistinct but enough to know it wasn't a regular customer. The store had sold hundreds of tickets that night, but only one held the jackpot. Meanwhile, the lottery's internal protocols were being tested. The drawing had been conducted under strict supervision, using machines designed to guarantee randomness and fairness. Independent auditors verified the draw results. No errors or tampering had been detected. Yet the unclaimed jackpot seemed to raise a thorny question: how could a ticket worth millions be in circulation, but no one stepped forward? The prize money was held in trust, accruing interest, and Iowa law required the jackpot to be claimed within a certain period, usually 180 days. If no one claimed it, the money would eventually be redirected to state education programs and other causes. But something about this situation didn't sit right with lottery CEO Terry Rich. He had run the Iowa lottery for years and knew the system inside and out. He also understood human nature. Millions of dollars don't simply vanish from the hands of ordinary people. Rich began to suspect this might not be a case of a lost ticket, but something far more sinister. Could the system itself have been compromised? Was there someone on the inside? Or had a criminal managed to intercept the ticket in a way that no one could detect? The pressure mounted. The media had caught wind of the story and reporters flooded the lottery office with questions. Speculation ran wild. Some suggested the ticket buyer was playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse, hiding their identity. Others whispered about fraud or conspiracy. Against this backdrop, the Iowa lottery started tightening security. New policies were drafted to prevent any similar incidents. But none of this would matter if the jackpot went unclaimed, or worse, was claimed illegally. Then, just as the 180-day deadline approached, a stunning development occurred. A man appeared, claiming to be the winner. His name was Eddie Tipton, a mid-level employee in the Multi-State Lottery Association, MUSL, the organization that operated the Hot Lotto game across several states. Tipton worked as the head of information security, a trusted position that gave him access to the lottery's central computer systems. Tipton presented the winning ticket. But something about the ticket didn't add up. For starters, he claimed to have purchased the ticket in Iowa, but records suggested the ticket was bought in a different state. The serial numbers didn't match the usual print runs. The ticket's barcode seemed altered. Lottery officials were immediately suspicious. How could an insider like Tipton be involved in this bizarre jackpot mystery? Tipton insisted he was innocent, that he had simply bought the ticket like anyone else and was now coming forward to claim his winnings. But investigators soon discovered disturbing anomalies. Surveillance footage from the lottery headquarters showed Tipton entering secure areas at odd hours, near the time of multiple lottery drawings. His computer logs revealed access to sensitive systems at suspicious times. It became clear that this was no ordinary lottery win, this was a carefully engineered scheme. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a chilling truth: Tipton had used his position inside the lottery system to manipulate the outcome of the drawings. Using his knowledge of the lottery's random number generators, he had created a computer program to predict winning numbers in advance, numbers no ordinary player could have known. Tipton's plan was clever and devious. Instead of buying many tickets with random numbers, he bought just a few tickets with the exact winning combination, ensuring a jackpot win with minimal investment. But the plan depended on secrecy. The moment he tried to claim the prize, the suspicion and scrutiny had begun. Tipton's confidence faded as investigators closed in. The unraveling of the Iowa Hot Lotto jackpot scam sent shockwaves through the lottery world. It exposed a critical vulnerability in what many thought was a foolproof system. The scandal raised questions about the fairness of multi-state lotteries and sparked calls for reforms. For the first time, the American public saw behind the curtain. The lottery wasn't just about luck and dreams. It was also about trust, security, and the potential for corruption. As the investigation unfolded, the full scale of Tipton's scheme came to light, and it was far larger than anyone had imagined. The web tightens. The revelation that Eddie Tipton, a trusted insider, could be the mastermind behind the $16.5 million Hot Lotto jackpot scandal shocked everyone. The quiet, unassuming man who had worked behind the scenes at the Multi-State Lottery Association, MUSL, was now at the center of one of the most audacious lottery frauds in American history. But the story was far from over. As the Iowa lottery officials and federal investigators intensified their scrutiny of Tipton's activities, they began to unravel a complex web of deceit. Tipton's role as the head of information security had allowed him unprecedented access to the lottery's central systems, including the random number generators, RNGs, that determined the winning combinations. RNGs were supposed to be impregnable, mechanical and electronic safeguards designed to ensure fairness and unpredictability. But Tipton, with his technical expertise and insider knowledge, had discovered a way to manipulate the system. Investigators found that Tipton had installed a self-written program on the lottery's RNG machines that could predict the winning numbers in advance. This program, disguised as legitimate code, operated only on specific days, the days when Hot Lotto drawings took place. But why didn't Tipton just claim the jackpots immediately? It was a matter of timing and risk. Claiming multiple jackpots in a short span would have raised alarms too quickly. Instead, Tipton played a long game. He purchased a winning ticket only occasionally, using a proxy or a trusted intermediary to avoid detection. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered more suspicious jackpots in other states connected to the same pattern, a small number of jackpot claims coming from seemingly random locations, with strange irregularities in the ticket purchases and claims. One by one, these links pointed back to Tipton or his associates. The FBI joined the investigation, recognizing the scale and technical complexity of the crime. They deployed forensic computer experts, combing through thousands of lines of code, network logs, and employee records. What they found was chilling. Tipton's scheme had not been a momentary lapse or a simple fraud. It was a meticulously crafted conspiracy, blending computer programming, insider knowledge, and careful timing to exploit a critical vulnerability in the lottery system. Meanwhile, public trust in state lotteries began to waver. The scandal was front-page news across the country. Headlines screamed about lottery fraud, insider scam, and millions stolen from the public. Lottery players felt betrayed. The dream of winning the jackpot, the hope of changing their lives overnight, suddenly seemed hollow. In the midst of the storm, Tipton maintained a calm facade. During interviews, He insisted that he was innocent and that any evidence against him was circumstantial or misinterpreted. But the weight of evidence was overwhelming. His computer fingerprints were all over the rogue code. Surveillance videos placed him near lottery machines at crucial moments. Witnesses reported seeing him acting secretively. The prosecutors were building a strong case. As the investigation continued, a startling discovery emerged. Tipton's actions might have affected other lottery games beyond Hot Lotto. Some of the schemes reached into other states, each with different lottery organizations. The scandal was no longer confined to Iowa. It was a nationwide problem. In response, the Multi-State Lottery Association and individual state lotteries began sweeping reforms. They replaced their RNG machines with newer, more secure technology. Policies on employee access to critical systems were tightened. Third-party audits became more frequent and rigorous. And as Tipton's trial approached, the public awaited justice. Would the insider lottery fraudster be held accountable? Could the broken trust be repaired? One thing was clear: the Iowa Hot Lotto jackpot scandal was a cautionary tale about the dangers of complacency in systems that rely heavily on technology and human trust. The lottery was supposed to be a game of chance, but the game had been rigged from the inside, shadows and courtrooms. The news of Eddie Tipton's arrest sent shockwaves through the lottery world and beyond. The man who had once guarded the integrity of the lottery system was now charged with betraying it in one of the largest lottery fraud schemes in U.S. history. But the legal battle was just beginning, and the path to justice was fraught with complexities. The federal grand jury handed down indictments against Tipton, charging him with multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and computer crimes. The evidence was damning: code he had written, surveillance footage placing him at key locations, and testimony from accomplices and lottery officials. Yet, Tipton and his legal team vehemently denied all charges. Tipton's defense argued that the evidence was circumstantial, and that the code in question could have been planted or manipulated by others. They suggested that rival employees, or even external hackers, might have framed him. His calm demeanor in court belied the intensity of the accusations. As the trial began, the courtroom became a battleground of experts. Prosecutors called cybersecurity specialists who explained how Tipton's program had predicted the winning numbers by manipulating the RNG system. Defense attorneys countered with alternate theories, challenging the reliability of the digital evidence and questioning the motives of witnesses. Outside the courtroom, the public followed every development with fascination and skepticism. Lottery players, once enthusiastic participants, now questioned the fairness of the system. Media outlets dissected every detail, debating how a trusted insider could exploit the very technology designed to guarantee randomness. Amid the legal wrangling, the investigation expanded. Authorities looked into Tipton's past, uncovering suspicious patterns in previous lottery drawings. They found that the scheme might have been in operation for years, possibly involving accomplices who had helped claim fraudulent jackpots in multiple states. One particularly troubling discovery was that some of the money won through the rigged system had been funneled through various frontmen and shell companies, making it difficult to trace. Prosecutors suspected a broader conspiracy but struggled to pin down all participants. Meanwhile, Tipton's family faced their own turmoil. Friends and relatives were torn between loyalty and disbelief. Some insisted he was innocent, while others feared the worst. The scandal had shattered the quiet life they once knew. The Iowa Lottery Commission moved swiftly to restore public trust. They launched a massive public outreach campaign, emphasizing new security measures and transparency. They also worked with other state lotteries to overhaul their systems, implementing stricter controls and independent audits. The case also sparked a nationwide discussion about the vulnerabilities in lottery systems across the country. Experts called for stronger oversight and the use of advanced cryptographic techniques to prevent insider tampering. As the months dragged on, the courtroom drama intensified. Tipton's defense presented surprising witnesses, former colleagues who claimed that the lottery's security was lax and that many employees had access to sensitive systems. They argued that blaming one man was simplistic and ignored deeper institutional failures. But the prosecution countered fiercely, painting Tipton as a mastermind who abused his position for personal gain. They detailed how he had covered his tracks, used proxies to claim winnings, and manipulated digital logs. Finally, the jury began their deliberations. For days, they wrestled with the complex evidence, weighing technical testimony against human credibility. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. Eddie Tipton was found guilty on multiple counts, including fraud and conspiracy. The judge sentenced him to a lengthy prison term, sending a strong message that even insiders in trusted positions could be held accountable for their crimes. The aftermath of the trial brought both relief and reflection. For the lottery community, it was a painful lesson in vulnerability and the importance of vigilance. For the public, it was a stark reminder that even the most trusted institutions could be compromised. And for Tipton, it was the end of a long fall from grace, a man who had once guarded the integrity of the game, now remembered as its greatest betrayer. Aftermath and reckoning. The courtroom emptied, the gavel's final pound echoing a verdict not just against Eddie Tipton but against the complacency that had allowed such a betrayal to fester. Yet, as the dust settled on the trial, a deeper reckoning began, one that would ripple far beyond the prison walls. The immediate aftermath was chaos and soul-searching for the lottery commissions across multiple states. They faced a crisis of confidence, their once reliable systems now questioned by a wary public. People who had spent years trusting the draw results now wondered if every jackpot was truly legitimate. Lottery directors convened emergency meetings. The message was clear: reform was not optional but essential. Many states had to freeze large payouts while they conducted extensive audits. Players flooded customer service lines demanding answers, refunds, or reassurance. In Iowa, where the scandal had first erupted, the Lottery Commission took a hard line. They hired independent cybersecurity firms to conduct comprehensive vulnerability assessments. The results were sobering: multiple weaknesses in software oversight, inadequate separation of duties, and an over-reliance on trust rather than verification. To restore trust, the Commission announced a series of sweeping reforms. Enhanced security protocols, multi-layered authentication, mandatory audits of all code changes, and real-time monitoring of lottery machines. Third-party oversight: independent watchdogs were brought in to review drawings and system integrity, creating a firewall between operators and the technology. Transparency initiatives: draws would be broadcast live, with independent observers from outside the lottery organizations. Employee vetting and rotation: to prevent any single individual from gaining unchecked access, staff roles were rotated regularly, with rigorous background checks. Other states quickly followed suit. The scandal had become a cautionary tale, highlighting how insider threats could compromise even the most secure systems. Yet, the fallout was not just technical or procedural. The human cost was profound. Some lottery winners who had come forward with suspicious claims were investigated and, in some cases, had their prizes revoked. While many were innocent, others were revealed as collaborators or beneficiaries of the rigged system. Their stories made headlines: tales of greed, desperation, or opportunism. For the average player, the scandal sparked a shift in attitudes. Lottery participation dipped temporarily as people questioned whether the game was fair. Some called for abolishing state lotteries altogether, citing the risk of corruption and wasted public funds. But others saw the reforms as a hopeful sign, a demonstration that vigilance and accountability could safeguard the future of public gaming. Media outlets ran in-depth investigations into the scandal's broader implications. Experts debated how digital systems, while efficient, required constant scrutiny to prevent manipulation. The conversation extended beyond lotteries to other industries reliant on complex algorithms and trusted insiders. In the midst of this reckoning, Eddie Tipton remained a figure of fascination and infamy. Interviews with former colleagues painted a picture of a brilliant but deeply secretive man, whose pride in his technical skills may have blinded him to the ethical abyss he was stepping into. Inside prison, Tipton faced the reality of his actions. He was no longer a gatekeeper but a cautionary example. Letters from family and friends trickled in, some offering support, others cutting ties. He used the time to reflect, and in rare moments of candidness, he admitted to mistakes, though he maintained that he never intended to harm the public, only to prove a point about system vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, the investigation into accomplices continued. Authorities worked tirelessly to unravel the complex web of shell companies, proxies, and false identities used to launder winnings. Several arrests followed, exposing a small network of collaborators. The lottery scandal also sparked legislative action. Lawmakers introduced bills to mandate tighter regulations for lottery operations, including standardized security certifications for lottery software, whistleblower protections for employees reporting irregularities, requirements for public reporting of lottery audits. In time, these measures helped rebuild trust. Players returned, albeit cautiously, encouraged by the transparency and accountability. The Tipton scandal remained a watershed moment, a stark reminder that even the most trusted systems must be constantly guarded, and that integrity in public institutions depends on more than technology alone. As the lottery world moved forward, the lessons of betrayal lingered, shaping a future where vigilance was the price of fairness. Ripples through the community. The scandal did not merely shake the lottery system, it reverberated through the communities touched by the promises of sudden fortune. For decades, state lotteries had been sold as harmless entertainment, a beacon of hope for those chasing dreams. But now, those dreams seemed tainted. In small towns across Iowa and beyond, conversations in diners, grocery stores, and family gatherings took on a new tone. People debated the ethics of gambling, the role of government in regulating vice, and the fragility of trust. Margie, a waitress at a local cafe in Des Moines, had been a regular lottery player for years. She bought tickets not just for herself but for her mother and sister, hoping that someday a win might lift them out of financial strain. After the scandal broke, she felt betrayed, not just by Tipton, but by a system that had always promised fairness but had now revealed its cracks. "It's like they were playing with our dreams," Margie told a friend. "How can we believe in anything when someone behind the scenes is rigging the game?" Her friend shrugged but admitted she had stopped buying tickets too. "If it's all fake, what's the point?" This quiet withdrawal was echoed in statistics. Lottery ticket sales dropped sharply in affected states for months after the scandal's exposure. Analysts worried that prolonged distrust could starve public programs funded by lottery revenues, from education to health services. Meanwhile, journalists dug deeper into the social fabric. They found stories of winners who'd been ostracized when their sudden windfalls seemed suspicious. Families fractured over accusations of fraud or complicity. Others wrestled with guilt, unsure if their good fortune had come from a rigged game. On the other side, the scandal renewed interest in digital security and ethics courses at universities. Professors used the Tipton case as a cautionary tale to teach future programmers about the weight of responsibility that comes with control over sensitive systems. At the same time, the media spotlight brought unexpected attention to the victims of the crime, everyday players who had lost faith. Advocacy groups formed to push for more consumer protections in the gambling industry, lobbying for transparency and fairness. In the midst of this, the personal stories intertwined with the scandal's wider effects. Eddie Tipton's family struggled with the fallout. His wife, once proud of his career, found herself shunned by friends and colleagues. Their children faced bullying at school, and whispers followed them in public. Though isolated, Eddie's brother, Mike, took a different path. He spoke out publicly, condemning the crime but pleading for understanding. He made terrible mistakes, but this is a man who lived his life surrounded by technology and secrecy. It was a perfect storm of temptation and opportunity. Mike's words sparked controversy. Some accused him of defending the indefensible, others saw him as a voice trying to humanize a scandal that had been reduced to headlines. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered that the tip of the iceberg was far from fully revealed. Multiple smaller-scale manipulations were suspected, though proving them was a challenge. One chilling discovery was that the security breach had been possible because lottery systems had failed to adopt emerging cybersecurity measures. While technology had advanced, governance had lagged behind, leaving the door open for exploitation. This realization spurred a movement toward industry-wide reforms beyond state lines. National task forces formed, exchanging information and best practices to prevent similar breaches in the future. Behind closed doors, government officials grappled with the political fallout. Some states threatened to cut funding or privatize lottery operations altogether. Others saw the scandal as a call to innovate, embracing blockchain technology and cryptographically secure random number generators. For the average citizen, the lottery was no longer a simple game but a complex institution with layers of vulnerability and governance. Yet amid the shadows, some hopeful voices emerged. Non-profit organizations used the scandal as a platform to advocate for financial literacy education, teaching people about the odds, risks, and realities of gambling. In classrooms, students learned that luck was not a guarantee and that real empowerment came from knowledge and resilience. Eddie Tipton, isolated in his prison cell, became a symbol of both failure and caution. His story was told and retold, not just as a criminal case but as a mirror reflecting the delicate balance between trust and technology. As reforms took hold and society wrestled with its lessons, the lottery world slowly began to heal, but the shadows of betrayal would linger, a reminder that even the most carefully built systems require vigilance and integrity at every level. The aftermath and reckoning. The courthouse steps were crowded again, but this time with a very different kind of gathering. Activists, journalists, lottery officials, and citizens all converged to witness hearings, to voice opinions, and to demand changes that might prevent another scandal from ever unfolding. The trial of Eddie Tipton had opened the floodgates, exposing vulnerabilities far beyond one man's greed. It became clear that the system itself, built on trust but lacking transparency, had been ripe for exploitation. Among those stepping into the spotlight was Claire Jensen, a determined investigative reporter whose career had been defined by exposing corruption and bringing hidden truths to light. She had spent months piecing together the puzzle of the lottery rigging, connecting interviews with anonymous insiders and whistleblowers. Claire's articles became a nationwide sensation. She detailed how insiders had used weak security protocols, outdated technology, and a lack of oversight to create a perfect environment for manipulation. Her work didn't just focus on the crime but on the institutional failures that had allowed it. Her exposés ignited public debate on multiple fronts. Consumer rights groups demanded comprehensive reforms, while government officials faced pressure to overhaul policies governing state-run gambling. At the same time, Claire uncovered something more disturbing: potential collusion beyond the lottery systems themselves. She discovered hints of connections between certain political donors and private companies vying for lucrative contracts in the aftermath of the scandal. As she delved deeper, Claire realized the scandal was not just about cheating to win money, it was a symptom of a much larger problem: the intersection of technology, governance, and unchecked power. Meanwhile, new legislation was drafted in several states, aiming to create independent lottery oversight commissions with real authority and transparency. These commissions would monitor every step of the lottery process, from ticket printing to payout. But change came slowly. Many bureaucrats resisted, worried about losing control or inviting external scrutiny. Lobbyists for private gambling interests pushed back against reforms, fearing regulations that could cut into profits. In the midst of these battles, another figure emerged: Professor Daniel Kim, a cybersecurity expert from a Midwestern university. Daniel was called upon as a consultant to help draft new security standards for lottery operations. He argued passionately that any future system had to be not just secure but verifiable by the public. His proposals included blockchain-based random number generation, real-time auditing, and public access to anonymized data, tools designed to restore trust through transparency. Daniel's work was pioneering but controversial. Some officials dismissed his ideas as too complex or expensive, while others embraced them as the only way forward. Meanwhile, public sentiment remained mixed. Some former lottery players felt empowered by the reforms, while others remained cynical, unwilling to risk their money again. Through it all, Eddie Tipton's story remained a powerful cautionary tale. Inside prison, Tipton reflected on his choices. The man who once held the keys to a nation's dreams now faced solitude and regret. He refused to talk much publicly, but when asked, he admitted his guilt and warned of complacency. "The system isn't broken because of me alone," he said in a rare interview. "It's broken because we believed it couldn't be broken." Trust without verification is a dangerous thing. Outside prison walls, the ripple effect spread further. Academic conferences debated the ethics of algorithmic transparency. Activists pushed for greater public involvement in decisions about gambling and technology. Some communities began rethinking their reliance on lottery funds, exploring more sustainable ways to finance schools and social programs. At a deeper level, the scandal prompted society to question its faith in technology. Could systems designed to be impartial and fair truly be trusted when human hands controlled the code? What safeguards were necessary to protect those who put their faith in these systems? Amid uncertainty, a fragile hope emerged, that lessons learned would lead to a more accountable future. As the nation grappled with these questions, new stories began to unfold, stories of reformers, whistleblowers, and ordinary citizens reclaiming control from the shadows of corruption. The scandal was no longer just a crime story, it had become a catalyst for change, a mirror reflecting society's evolving relationship with power, technology, and trust. A new dawn or false hope? The months following the scandal's exposure were turbulent, filled with uncertainty and cautious optimism. Across the country, the fallout from the lottery rigging case was still fresh in everyone's minds, but the push for reform had gained undeniable momentum. Claire Jensen's investigative series continued to influence public opinion. Her revealing articles not only kept the story alive but also inspired citizens to demand more transparency and accountability from institutions they once blindly trusted. In small towns and big cities alike, town hall meetings buzzed with debates over the future of state lotteries. Was it possible to create a system both profitable and incorruptible? Could technology, so easily manipulated, ever be truly secure? Some states embraced radical change. In Oregon, legislators passed a bill mandating that all lottery random number generators be open source and subject to third-party audits. The law required public disclosure of security protocols and invited citizen oversight committees. The reform was celebrated by advocates like Professor Daniel Kim, who traveled to Portland to help implement the new system. Daniel worked alongside a diverse team of programmers, statisticians, and community leaders, determined to build a lottery that could be trusted again. But even as the new systems were designed, resistance simmered. Traditionalists viewed the reforms as impractical or naive. Many officials feared that too much transparency might invite exploitation by hackers or cause public panic. Meanwhile, the private gambling industry watched nervously. Corporations with vested interests in the old lottery model lobbied hard against the reforms, warning that increased regulation would stifle innovation and reduce revenues used for public services. In this atmosphere of tension, grassroots movements began to grow. Citizen watchdog groups formed in states across the nation, wielding new technology to monitor lottery systems and publicize irregularities. One such group, the Fair Play Coalition, organized volunteers with backgrounds in cybersecurity, law, and consumer rights. They developed tools that allowed players to verify winning numbers independently and report suspicious activity anonymously. The coalition's work empowered everyday people. Sarah Morales, a former schoolteacher turned activist, became one of its most vocal leaders. She argued passionately that lotteries should serve communities honestly and transparently, not enrich insiders or criminals. "We give them our trust," Sarah said at a rally in Denver. "It's time they earned it back, not with promises but with actions we can see and verify." Her message resonated widely, especially among younger generations who had grown skeptical of traditional institutions. At the same time, political debates around gambling funding grew fiercer. Some lawmakers proposed ending state lotteries altogether, arguing that they preyed on vulnerable populations and created false hopes. Opponents countered that lotteries provided essential funding for schools, healthcare, and infrastructure, services that would suffer without them. The debate exposed a fundamental dilemma, balancing financial necessity with ethical responsibility. Amid these discussions, Eddie Tipton's case remained a powerful symbol. His admission of guilt and warnings about complacency were cited repeatedly in legislative hearings. Yet, even as reforms were implemented, questions lingered. Could new technology really prevent insider fraud, or would human ambition find new ways to corrupt? Professor Daniel Kim's team worked to address these concerns by designing multi-layered security measures. The new lottery systems integrated biometric access controls, distributed ledger technologies, and real-time anomaly detection. Still, Daniel admitted that no system was perfect. Security is not a product, but a process, he told a national conference. We must constantly evolve, learn from failures, and engage the public as partners, not just spectators. His words reflected a shifting mindset, one that recognized technology alone could not solve human problems without accountability and vigilance. As the nation slowly rebuilt trust, the scandal's legacy extended beyond gambling. It sparked conversations about governance, technology ethics, and citizen empowerment that rippled through many sectors. In schools, educators incorporated lessons about digital literacy and critical thinking. Universities offered courses on cybersecurity ethics. Communities formed alliances to demand transparency in everything from elections to public spending. Yet, for all the progress, shadows of doubt remained. The scandal had shattered illusions, revealing the fragile line between trust and betrayal. For many, the path forward was still uncertain. But amidst the questions and challenges, a new hope had emerged, a hope born from reckoning, courage, and the shared determination to build systems worthy of faith. The story was far from over. Shadows of the past. Despite the sweeping reforms and growing public engagement, the shadows cast by the lottery scandal lingered stubbornly. While some states embraced new technology and transparency, others resisted change or implemented only superficial fixes. The fragile trust between the public and institutions remained precarious. Sarah Morales and the Fair Play Coalition had gained national attention, but the fight was far from over. Behind closed doors, powerful interests continued to maneuver to protect their stakes in the old system. Lobbyists flooded legislators with carefully crafted arguments, undermining reform efforts. In Illinois, the State Lottery Commission struggled to maintain credibility. The newly appointed director, Marcus Blake, a former private sector consultant, faced mounting pressure from politicians and industry insiders. His attempts to introduce stricter oversight were met with quiet resistance and thinly veiled threats. Marcus knew the risks well. Several of his predecessors had resigned under suspicious circumstances or faced public disgrace. The system was deeply entrenched, with many players unwilling to relinquish influence. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself grappling with burnout. Years of activism, public speaking, and organizing left her physically and emotionally drained. The relentless opposition and occasional threats weighed heavily on her. One evening, after a tense meeting with coalition members, she sat alone in her modest apartment, scrolling through messages from supporters and detractors alike. Among the encouraging notes, an anonymous tip caught her attention, a leaked document hinting at ongoing manipulations in a state lottery that was supposed to be reformed. The document detailed suspicious patterns in number drawings, irregular access logs to the RNG system, and unexplained financial transactions. It suggested that despite all reforms, some insiders had found ways to exploit vulnerabilities. Sarah's heart sank. The nightmare was far from over. Determined to uncover the truth, she contacted Claire Jensen. The journalist, ever hungry for a new lead, agreed to investigate with her. Together, they planned to dig deeper into the state lottery's operations, following the trail of the leaked data. At the same time, Marcus Blake received his own warning. Late one night, an encrypted message appeared on his phone: "Back off or pay the price." The threat was chilling but also a testament to the stakes involved. Marcus knew he couldn't back down, not now. He began quietly assembling a trusted team of auditors and cybersecurity experts to monitor the lottery system around the clock. Elsewhere, Daniel Kim's team wrestled with unforeseen challenges. New hacking attempts, more sophisticated than before, targeted the lottery's infrastructure. These attacks tested every line of defense and threatened to undermine public confidence. The tension reached a breaking point when an unexpected blackout struck a major city during a high-profile lottery draw. Although officials quickly attributed it to technical failure, rumors of sabotage spread like wildfire on social media. Public anxiety surged. Was the lottery still safe? Could anyone be trusted? Amid the chaos, Eddie Tipton remained in prison, serving his sentence. In a rare interview, he warned about complacency and the dangers of underestimating insider threats. "Security isn't just about machines or codes," he said. "It's about people, and greed never sleeps." His words haunted reformers, underscoring the delicate balance between innovation and vigilance. As investigations unfolded, Sarah and Claire uncovered a web of deceit involving several mid-level employees colluding with external hackers. The scheme was smaller in scale than Tipton's but no less damaging. Their exposé ignited a firestorm, prompting fresh calls for accountability and renewed reforms. But the battle was far from won. For every victory, new challenges emerged. The system's complexity and the competing interests made progress slow and uneven. And beneath the surface, old loyalties and rivalries simmered, threatening to pull everything back into darkness. In the face of uncertainty, the reformers clung to a simple truth: change was a process, not an event. The path to justice and trust would be long and arduous. Yet, for the first time in years, hope flickered with renewed strength, fractures and alliances. The exposé shook the nation. Headlines blared accusations and revelations. The public's faith in the lottery system hung by a thread. Sarah Morales and Claire Jensen found themselves thrust into the spotlight, their work praised by some, condemned by others. In the chaotic aftermath, political fault lines deepened. Reform advocates called for sweeping changes and federal oversight, while entrenched interests pushed back hard, accusing the coalition of fearmongering and undermining a beloved institution. Sarah felt the pressure intensely. Invitations to speak at forums, interviews, and strategy sessions filled her calendar. Yet behind the scenes, the coalition faced internal tensions. Not everyone agreed on how far to push reforms or how to navigate the political minefield. One evening, at a late-night meeting, the division came to a head. Marcus Blake, the Illinois lottery director, proposed a cautious, incremental approach to reform, fearing that too much too fast might provoke backlash and stall progress entirely. "We have to win this war," Marcus argued, "but picking fights we can't finish will only strengthen our enemies." Some coalition members, exhausted and wary, nodded in reluctant agreement. Others, led by Sarah, believed bold action was the only way to root out corruption. "We can't compromise on integrity," Sarah insisted. "If we let the system limp along with half measures, we're just postponing the inevitable collapse." The debate ended without resolution, a reminder that the coalition's unity was fragile. Meanwhile, Marcus intensified his efforts within the state lottery. He pushed for installing tamper-proof hardware and real-time auditing systems, but his proposals faced slow legislative approval. Lobbyists representing vendors and contractors sympathetic to the old order lobbied aggressively behind closed doors. At home, Marcus grappled with loneliness and stress. His marriage, already strained by long hours and secrecy, frayed further as he devoted himself to the cause. Sarah's personal life also bore the cost. Old friendships faded, and the persistent threats made her wary of strangers. Yet, she found solace in small victories, the gratitude of whistleblowers who finally spoke out, and the growing network of citizens demanding accountability. Claire Jensen, balancing her career and the emotional toll of the investigations, uncovered a surprising ally, a former lottery employee who had left the industry disillusioned and willing to provide insider information. Their cooperation led to uncovering a covert communications network used by corrupt employees to coordinate schemes and cover tracks. This discovery allowed the coalition and authorities to launch targeted investigations. In Washington, Senator Elena Cruz, a vocal reform supporter, introduced legislation aiming to standardize lottery regulations and implement national oversight mechanisms. The bill ignited fierce debate in Congress, revealing deep partisan divides and exposing the influence of corporate lobbying. As the political battle intensified, shadowy forces mobilized to discredit reformers. Anonymous smear campaigns, leaked false information, and cyber attacks targeted Sarah, Claire, and Marcus. One morning, Sarah found her home vandalized, windows shattered, threatening graffiti scrawled across the walls. Though shaken, she refused to back down. "We're not just fighting a system," she told Claire, "we're fighting those who profit from silence." In the midst of turmoil, an unexpected coalition formed. Representatives from consumer advocacy groups, cybersecurity experts, former lottery insiders, and even some cautious politicians agreed to work together, united by a shared goal. This alliance began crafting a comprehensive reform plan that combined technological upgrades, stricter oversight, transparency measures, and public education campaigns. Yet, as progress was made, an ominous development emerged. A mysterious figure, dubbed the Architect by cybercrime investigators, appeared to orchestrate attacks on lottery systems nationwide. The Architect's motives were unclear. Some suspected a criminal syndicate, others feared a rogue insider with deep knowledge of the system's vulnerabilities. Sarah and Marcus realized they were up against an adversary as elusive as the threats they had faced before, but more sophisticated and dangerous. The stakes had never been higher. In a tense meeting with federal investigators, Marcus shared intelligence about the Architect's activities, emphasizing the need for cross-agency cooperation. Sarah, too, mobilized the coalition to raise public awareness and pressure lawmakers to act swiftly. As the story spread, the public's role became more vital. Citizens demanded accountability, transparency, and security, recognizing that the lottery was more than just a game, it was a reflection of trust in institutions. The struggle to reclaim that trust became a defining battle of the era. Shadows and revelations. The morning light filtered weakly through the blinds of Sarah Morales' apartment as she sat hunched over her laptop, eyes scanning lines of code and encrypted messages intercepted by the coalition's cyber experts. The name, the Architect, lingered in her mind, a ghost in the machine, an unknown mastermind behind a series of cyber attacks crippling lottery servers across multiple states. Sarah rubbed her temples. The fight was no longer just about exposing internal corruption or flawed policies, it had evolved into a high-stakes battle against a faceless enemy wielding technological weapons. And this adversary was winning ground. Meanwhile, Marcus Blake sat across from FBI agents in a secure conference room, sharing details about the vulnerabilities within the lottery's network infrastructure. He felt a mix of relief and dread. Relief, because for the first time, the federal government was seriously engaged. Dread, because if the Architect was as sophisticated as the intelligence suggested, the damage could spread far beyond the lottery system. "We're dealing with a highly skilled actor who knows the system inside out," an FBI cyber specialist warned. "Their methods are evolving, and they're adaptive. This isn't your typical hacker." Marcus nodded. He thought of the countless hours he had spent trying to safeguard the lottery's technology, often running into bureaucratic red tape and outdated equipment. Back in the coalition's war room, Claire Jensen coordinated a network of informants, analysts, and security experts. The former employee who had provided insider knowledge proved invaluable in deciphering the labyrinth of communications and identifying potential leads. "Look at this," Claire said, pointing at the screen displaying a map of recent attacks. The Architect's activity clusters around key states with large lotteries, Illinois, California, New York. But the pattern isn't random. It's almost like they're testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. Sarah leaned in, her eyes narrowing. If that's true, they're planning something bigger, maybe a coordinated strike designed to bring down multiple lotteries simultaneously. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily on everyone. The lottery was a multi-billion-dollar industry and a vital source of public revenue for education, infrastructure, and social programs. A successful attack could destabilize economies and erode public trust irreparably. Amid the mounting tension, political battles raged on Capitol Hill. Senator Elena Cruz fought to keep the lottery reform bill alive, but powerful lobbyists representing contractors and gaming companies pushed back fiercely. "Don't underestimate them," Elena told Sarah during a private meeting. "They have millions invested in maintaining the status quo. Your coalition's findings are shaking things up, but we need more concrete evidence to win over skeptical lawmakers." Sarah understood. In politics, truth was often a casualty, but she was determined to hold the line. One evening, as Sarah and Claire pored over the latest encrypted messages, a breakthrough came unexpectedly. The coalition's cybersecurity team decrypted part of a communication revealing a plan to inject fraudulent data into lottery drawing machines to manipulate results on a massive scale. "It's worse than we thought," Claire said grimly. "They want to rig jackpots to funnel money to shadowy accounts." Sarah's mind raced. This was not just about corruption or greed, it was a deliberate assault on the very fairness and integrity of the game millions trusted. They moved quickly to share the intelligence with Marcus and the authorities. A multi-agency task force formed, combining state lottery officials, federal investigators, and cybersecurity experts. As the investigation deepened, the coalition uncovered evidence linking the architect to a network of insiders, current and former employees who had been coerced or bribed to assist in the scheme. Marcus, haunted by the betrayal, vowed to root out every corrupt element. In a tense raid on a suburban warehouse, authorities seized servers and equipment used to facilitate the fraudulent activity. The operation made headlines, with news outlets praising the coalition's efforts. Yet the threat remained. The architect had vanished from digital trails, leaving behind only the damage and unanswered questions. In the midst of the turmoil, Sarah received a chilling anonymous message: "You cannot stop the inevitable." The warning underscored the dangerous game they were playing. But Sarah and her allies refused to back down. The fight for the lottery's soul was far from over, the web tightens. The aftermath of the warehouse raid was a momentary victory, but the atmosphere remained tense. Sarah Morales stared at the blinking cursor on her laptop, the weight of the anonymous threat heavy in her mind. "You cannot stop the inevitable." Those words echoed in her thoughts, a reminder that the enemy they faced was both ruthless and elusive. At the coalition's headquarters, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. Claire Jensen paced the room, eyes flicking between monitors displaying live data streams, intercepted communications, and network activity. Despite the raid, the architect's digital footprint had vanished like smoke, leaving little to trace. "We're chasing ghosts," Claire muttered, frustrated. "Every time we close in, they disappear." Marcus Blake sat nearby, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "The insiders we uncovered, some were low-level technicians, others held key security clearances. Whoever this architect is, they have deep roots in the system. This isn't just a cyber attack, it's an inside job with a sophisticated cover." Sarah joined them, sharing the latest intel. "Our decryption team intercepted a partial message from a private encrypted channel used by suspected collaborators. It mentioned a Phase 2, something bigger is coming. If we don't act fast, the consequences could be catastrophic." The team knew they had to stay ahead. As weeks passed, more states reported irregularities, unexplained glitches in lottery machines, subtle discrepancies in draw outcomes, and sudden shifts in jackpot winners. The public's confidence wavered, and media outlets began speculating about possible fraud, further shaking the industry. On Capitol Hill, Senator Elena Cruz felt the pressure mounting. Opponents of the lottery reform bill exploited the chaos, painting it as an overreaction that would cripple an important source of funding. Lobbyists launched aggressive campaigns, flooding the airwaves with messages about job losses and economic harm. "We can't let them win this fight," Elena told Sarah during a clandestine meeting in a quiet cafe. "Public opinion is fragile. We need undeniable proof to convince Congress and the public that reform is essential." Sarah nodded, determination burning in her eyes. "We're gathering evidence. But it's a race against time." In the shadows, the architect watched the unfolding drama unfold with cold calculation. Every move the coalition made was anticipated, every step countered. They had built a network of proxies, false trails, and encrypted safehouses scattered across the country. Their next move would be decisive. One night, as Sarah worked late, her computer screen flickered before going dark. A message flashed briefly before the system crashed. "This is just the beginning." The warning was clear. The architect was escalating. Marcus and Claire intensified their efforts to track digital anomalies, coordinating with cybersecurity agencies worldwide. International cooperation became vital as similar patterns appeared in foreign lotteries and gaming networks. It was no longer just a national crisis, it was a global threat. Amid the growing chaos, internal tensions within the coalition surfaced. Differing opinions on strategy, risks, and transparency created fractures. Some urged for immediate public disclosure of all findings, while others feared triggering panic or alerting the architect. Sarah found herself mediating these disputes, trying to keep the coalition united. Then, a breakthrough arrived in an unexpected form. An anonymous whistleblower from within a major lottery corporation contacted the coalition, offering critical information. The source claimed to possess documents and communications that could expose the full extent of the conspiracy and reveal the architect's true identity. The coalition arranged a secret meeting. When the whistleblower arrived, a nervous but resolute woman named Lisa, she handed over a data drive containing troves of incriminating evidence. As Sarah and Marcus delved into the files, the picture became clearer. The conspiracy was vast, involving not just rogue employees but powerful financiers and shadowy figures with vested interests in manipulating the lottery for profit and influence. The stakes had never been higher. Sarah realized that the fight was no longer just about protecting a game or reforming a system, it was about defending the very principles of fairness, trust, and democracy. With renewed resolve, the coalition prepared to confront the architect and the forces behind them, knowing the battle ahead would demand every ounce of courage and sacrifice. Unmasking shadows. The evidence Lisa brought was a bombshell. The data drive contained encrypted emails, financial records, and internal memos revealing the intricate web woven by the architect and their associates. It was no longer a faceless hacker in the shadows, this was an organized syndicate with vast resources and deep connections to powerful players. Sarah Morales sat in the secure conference room, the glow from multiple monitors casting long shadows on the walls. Marcus Blake was busy analyzing the financial trails, while Claire Jensen coordinated with federal investigators. The team had never felt more on edge. Each discovery unveiled layers of corruption far beyond anything they'd imagined. "We're looking at a conspiracy that spans continents," Marcus said grimly. "Money laundering, insider trading, manipulation of global gaming markets. This goes way beyond lotteries." Sarah scanned the emails, her eyes narrowing at a chain of correspondence involving several high-ranking executives and unknown intermediaries using code names like The Eagle and Oracle. "These names keep coming up," she said. "We need to identify who they really are." Claire tapped into international databases and cross-referenced the aliases. Slowly, pieces began to fall into place. A shadowy figure known only as the Eagle was linked to offshore accounts and shell companies registered in tax havens. Oracle appeared tied to advanced AI algorithms used for predicting and manipulating odds. As the coalition pieced together the puzzle, political pressure intensified. Senator Elena Cruz faced fierce opposition in Congress, as powerful lobbyists launched disinformation campaigns aiming to discredit the coalition's findings. Anonymous threats flooded Sarah's inbox, warning her to back off or face dire consequences. But the team refused to be intimidated. One evening, Sarah received a cryptic message from an unknown source: "Meet me at the old docks tonight. I have information that will change everything." Despite the risks, Sarah decided to go. The docks were deserted, mist curling over the water under the pale moonlight. A figure emerged, a man in his late 40s, dressed in a worn jacket, eyes darting nervously. "I'm Thomas," he said quietly. "I used to work for one of the companies involved. I've seen what they're capable of. They're planning a major operation, something that could crash multiple markets at once." Sarah listened intently as Thomas outlined the details of a coordinated strike dubbed Project Phoenix. The plan involved exploiting vulnerabilities in gaming and financial systems simultaneously, causing widespread chaos and profiting from the resulting turmoil. "This is bigger than just the lottery," Thomas warned. "They want to destabilize economies and leverage control." Back at the coalition, the revelation sparked urgent action. Security protocols were heightened, and contingency plans drafted. The clock was ticking. Meanwhile, the architect and their cabal accelerated their moves. Fake media outlets began spreading rumors to sow distrust, while hackers launched sophisticated cyber attacks targeting infrastructure linked to the coalition. Inside the coalition, tensions reached a breaking point. Claire and Marcus clashed over how transparent to be with the public, while Sarah struggled to keep the team focused amid growing fear and uncertainty. Amidst the turmoil, a leak from within the coalition threatened to unravel everything. Sensitive information found its way into the wrong hands, compromising their operations and forcing a risky recalibration. Sarah felt the weight of leadership pressing down. Trust was fragile, and the enemy seemed always one step ahead. Yet, amidst the shadows, there was hope. New allies emerged, whistleblowers from rival factions, ethical hackers, and even insiders risking everything to bring the truth to light. Together, they prepared for a final confrontation. The battle to unmask the architect had entered its most dangerous phase. Failure would mean chaos on an unprecedented scale. Success could restore faith in a system under siege. And Sarah knew one thing for certain: the world was watching, and history would remember how this fight was fought. The storm breaks. The days that followed Thomas's revelation were a whirlwind of activity and unease. The coalition worked tirelessly to anticipate and counteract the moves of the architect's network. Every piece of intelligence was scrutinized, every vulnerability patched, or at least, tried to be. But the enemy was relentless, adaptive, and always one step ahead. In the digital realm, waves of cyber attacks battered the coalition's defenses. Firewalls were breached, databases flooded with false information, and key communication channels jammed or hijacked. Marcus, the cyber specialist, barely slept, racing to trace the attacks back to their origin and deploy countermeasures. "They're probing for weaknesses," Marcus said, his face pale under the harsh glow of his monitors. "This is no ordinary hacking spree. It's coordinated chaos." Outside the digital storm, political pressure mounted. Senator Elena Cruz found herself besieged by smear campaigns and threats, aimed at undermining her credibility and the coalition's legitimacy. Media outlets controlled or influenced by the architect's operatives published sensational stories designed to sow doubt and confusion. "Public opinion is our battlefield," Claire warned during a tense strategy meeting. "We need to control the narrative or risk losing everything." Sarah agreed. They launched a counteroffensive: public briefings, carefully vetted leaks to trusted journalists, and social media campaigns to expose the lies. It was a delicate balance between transparency and protecting sensitive information. Amid this chaos, a breakthrough came. Marcus detected a pattern in the cyber attacks, a subtle signature left behind by one of the hackers. Using this clue, the Coalition traced a crucial node of the Architects' network to a fortified data center in an undisclosed location. "We have a target," Marcus announced, relief mixed with tension in his voice. "If we can seize control of that node, we can disrupt their operations significantly." Planning the raid required precision and secrecy. The Coalition coordinated with international law enforcement and special cyber response teams. The stakes were immense. Failure could trigger retaliation and tip the balance further in the enemy's favor. On the night of the operation, Sarah led the command center, watching live feeds as the team infiltrated the data center. Inside, elite operatives navigated laser grids, security patrols, and encrypted locks to reach the core servers. Suddenly, alarms blared. "They've triggered an alert," Marcus shouted, fingers flying over his keyboard to maintain the digital assault. In the physical and virtual arenas, chaos erupted. But the Coalition held their ground. The operatives secured the servers, extracting critical data and planting countermeasures designed to cripple the Architects' systems. As dawn broke, the Coalition had dealt a serious blow. The network staggered, and some of the Architects' operatives went dark. The momentum shifted. But victory came with a cost. One of the operatives was severely injured, and the operation exposed the Coalition's hand to some of their enemies. Meanwhile, Sarah received another encrypted message. This time, it was a direct challenge from the Architect. "You may win a battle," the message read, "but the war is far from over. Phoenix will rise again." The warning was clear, and chilling. The Coalition knew that the Architect was preparing for a counterstrike. The upcoming days would decide not just the future of their mission, but the fate of global stability itself. Sarah steeled herself for the storm ahead. The fight was no longer just about exposing corruption, it was a battle for survival. And as the shadows lengthened, the world held its breath. Shadows of retaliation. The aftermath of the raid left the Coalition reeling but resolute. The Architects' network had been severely disrupted, but as Sarah had feared, their enemy was far from defeated. The chilling message, "Phoenix will rise again," haunted her thoughts like a specter. It was a clear indication that the Architect was preparing something far more dangerous, something that would push the Coalition to its limits. The Coalition's headquarters buzzed with tense urgency. Every member understood that this victory was only temporary. The Architects' operatives had vanished into the shadows, their reach still vast and insidious. In the days that followed, signs of retaliation emerged with a brutal and calculated precision. It began with subtle but devastating economic disruptions. Critical infrastructures, from power grids to financial systems, were targeted by cascading cyber attacks. City streets plunged into darkness as power outages spread. Automated systems malfunctioned, causing chaos in transportation and communication networks. Marcus's team worked feverishly to contain the damage, but the attacks were relentless and multifaceted. It wasn't just a fight in cyberspace anymore, it was bleeding into the physical world. Simultaneously, political instability surged as the Architects' propaganda machine ignited civil unrest. Protests erupted in major cities, fueled by misinformation campaigns and orchestrated social media manipulation. The Coalition's allies found themselves under siege from public distrust, and some governments wavered, unsure whom to believe. Senator Elena Cruz faced increasing hostility. Threats became personal, extending beyond digital harassment to real-world intimidation. Security had to be tightened around her, and her resolve was tested daily. Sarah, meanwhile, was haunted by the image of the injured operative from the raid. Despite medical efforts, he remained in critical condition. The cost of their fight was tangible, and morale was strained. Yet, amid the turmoil, a small beacon of hope appeared. From the intelligence gathered during the raid, Marcus uncovered hints of a hidden facility linked to the Architects' command center. Its location was unknown, but it might hold the key to dismantling the network once and for all. The Coalition debated the risks. Launching an assault on the hidden stronghold was perilous, an outright war could erupt, and the collateral damage could be catastrophic. But inaction would only invite further chaos. Sarah convened a critical meeting. "We have to act," she said firmly. "If we don't strike at their heart, this cycle of destruction will never end. We must prepare for the operation, but with utmost caution." The coalition's planners began meticulous preparations, coordinating with international forces to ensure precision and minimal exposure. Surveillance drones, satellite imagery, and cyber reconnaissance formed a web of intelligence. Yet, time was slipping away. On the eve of the mission, an encrypted communiqué slipped through the coalition's defenses, a taunt from the architect himself. "I see your every move, Sarah. You play with shadows, but I am the darkness that devours them. Be ready to face the consequences." The message was a stark reminder. The architect was not just a mastermind behind a network, he was a force of chaos, bent on reshaping the world in his image. As the coalition braced for what was to come, Sarah looked around the room at her team, worn but unyielding. "We step into the storm," she said quietly. "But we do not step back." The night grew heavy with anticipation. The war was about to enter its most dangerous phase yet, into the lion's den. The first light of dawn barely pierced the horizon when the coalition's elite strike team assembled in the briefing room, faces set with steely determination. Months of preparation, months of intelligence gathering, had culminated in this moment, the decisive operation to infiltrate the architect's hidden stronghold. Sarah paced the room, reviewing every detail of the plan one last time. The location had been identified after painstaking analysis of intercepted communications and satellite images. Nestled deep within a remote mountain range, the facility was heavily fortified, shielded by rugged terrain and sophisticated security systems. It was a fortress designed to withstand any conventional assault. "We know this won't be easy," Sarah began, her voice steady but urgent. "Their defenses are layered, physical, digital, and psychological. We'll face resistance from every angle." Marcus and his cyber unit were tasked with breaching the facility's firewalls and disabling surveillance remotely while the ground team moved in under the cover of darkness. "Timing is everything," Marcus said, scanning his monitors. "Once the digital shield drops, the window will be short. We need to move fast and precise." The strike team, composed of the coalition's best operatives, suited up in advanced tactical gear. Their movements were rehearsed to perfection, a ballet of efficiency born from countless simulations. As the convoy rumbled toward the mountain's shadowed slopes, tension mounted. The silence inside the vehicles was punctuated only by the crackling of radio static and the heavy breaths of soldiers bracing for what lay ahead. Reaching the perimeter, the team deployed quickly, using stealth to avoid patrols and motion sensors. Marcus's cyber squad monitored from a remote command center, working feverishly to hack into the facility's network and disable defenses. Suddenly, the facility's security systems flickered, a sign that Marcus's team was breaking through. "Shields down in T-30 seconds, Marcus reported. Get ready." The ground team breached the outer gate as the digital lockdown lifted. Inside, the labyrinth of corridors was a maze of cold steel and blinking consoles, humming with ominous energy. The architect's operatives appeared, heavily armed and prepared to defend their command center. A fierce firefight erupted, echoing off the walls like thunder. Sarah moved with practiced precision, leading her team through the chaos, communicating through hand signals and bursts of radio code. The coalition's training held firm, but the enemy's numbers were formidable. As they advanced deeper, signs of the architect's twisted ambitions became evident, rooms filled with servers housing stolen data, walls plastered with plans and maps of destabilized regions, and cryptic messages hinting at even greater schemes. Then came the worst blow. A hidden trap detonated, sealing the corridors behind them and cutting off Marcus's cyber team from the ground squad. Communications were severed. The team was trapped. Panic threatened to rise, but Sarah forced herself to focus. The mission was no longer just about intelligence or sabotage, it was survival. "Regroup at Point Delta," she commanded. We find another way out. We complete this mission, or we don't leave at all. The fight for control of the facility became a desperate battle against time, against dwindling ammunition, and against an enemy that knew the terrain far better. In the heart of the fortress, the architect watched through cameras, a cold smile playing on his lips. "Let them come," he whispered. "They will break, but from the ashes, a new order will rise." The heart of the storm. The metallic clang of footsteps echoed through the narrow passageways as Sarah's team pushed forward, every sense alert to the dangers lurking in the shadows. The trap had cut them off from their cyber allies, and with communications down, the team now depended entirely on their wits and training. "We need to move fast," Sarah said quietly, scanning the dim corridor ahead. "If the architect's reinforcements arrive, we'll be overwhelmed." Jacob, their demolitions expert, inspected the collapsed walls that blocked their path. "This is no ordinary trap, explosives sealed this off from the inside. We'll have to find another way." Navigating through an adjacent maintenance shaft, the team climbed and crawled, muscles straining against the tight confines. The air was stale and heavy, but the only option was forward. Meanwhile, back in the remote command center, Marcus was frantically trying to regain contact. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he battled the architect's complex firewall, but the enemy's defenses had grown more adaptive. Every attempt was met with resistance. "We can't let them isolate us," Marcus muttered. "We have to break in." Suddenly, the control room's alarms blared. A new breach had been detected. The architect's forces were closing in on the command center itself. Marcus made a quick decision. "I'm going to initiate a system-wide data dump. Even if we lose access, the intel will be sent to coalition servers." Back underground, Sarah's team found themselves at a heavy security door, the last barrier between them and the central command hub where the architect was rumored to operate. Kara, the team's hacker, produced a device to override the lock. As she worked, the team positioned themselves defensively, weapons raised. The door hissed open. Inside, the room was a nerve center of holographic displays, blinking consoles, and a massive digital map of the global network. And there, in the center, stood the architect, calm, almost serene, as if expecting them. "So, you've come at last," he said, voice cold and precise. "I admire your persistence." Sarah raised her weapon. "This ends now. Surrender, or we'll take you down." The architect smiled faintly. "You don't understand the scale of what's at stake. I am the future, the order beyond chaos." Suddenly, hidden operatives appeared from concealed doors, firing their weapons. Chaos erupted. The battle in the heart of the fortress was brutal, a clash of ideologies and wills. Sarah's team fought with everything they had, every move critical. In the midst of the firefight, Kara managed to upload a virus into the architect's system, crippling his control over the facility. Alarms blared and the building began to tremble, an automated self-destruct sequence activated. "We need to get out, now," Sarah shouted. The team sprinted through collapsing corridors, dodging debris and enemy fire. The facility was coming down around them. Emerging into the cool night air, they saw the mountain engulfed in a growing inferno. As helicopters descended to extract them, Sarah looked back, knowing the battle had been won, but the war against the architect's vision was far from over, shadows and echoes. The night air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning circuitry as the helicopters lifted Sarah and her team away from the collapsing fortress. Flames licked the mountainside, consuming the last vestiges of the architect's domain, a physical manifestation of his digital empire unraveling. But victory tasted bittersweet. Sarah sat tense, eyes fixed on the inferno below. "We stopped him today, but his ideas, they're already out there. The code, the network, pieces of his vision will survive." Jacob, bandaged but alert, nodded grimly. "It's like fighting a virus. You can destroy one cell, but the infection spreads." Kara, still catching her breath, turned her gaze to the horizon. We've got the data dump. It's in coalition hands now. If we can analyze it fast, maybe we can trace where his influence has seeped into global systems. Marcus's voice came through the comms, shaky but determined. We're coordinating with every agency we can reach. The Architect's network isn't just his fortress, it's decentralized, built to survive. We're dealing with a new kind of war. Sarah clenched her fists. Then we have to be ready. No more reacting. We need to take the fight to them. Back at the Coalition Command Center, analysts began decrypting the Architect's files. The data revealed a sprawling web of cyber agents embedded in governments, corporations, and even grassroots movements. His vision was no longer confined to one man or one place, it had become a contagion. Meanwhile, the world outside was already feeling the tremors. Power grids flickered, stock markets jittered, and rumors of mass surveillance abuses surfaced worldwide. Sarah's team was thrust into a new kind of battlefield, one where shadows and echoes of the Architect's plans played out in the invisible circuits of cyberspace and the minds of those he'd manipulated. In the quiet moments before dawn, Sarah stared at the screen showing global hotspots of unrest and cyber attacks. "This isn't just a mission anymore," she whispered. "It's a fight for the future of freedom itself." As the sun rose, the world held its breath. The war against the Architect had only just begun, the new front lines. The following weeks unfolded like a fevered battle across both physical and virtual realms. Sarah's team operated in a world that had shifted beneath their feet, a landscape where traditional borders mattered less than data streams, and alliances were forged or broken with keystrokes. The Coalition's intelligence network worked around the clock. Analysts traced shadowy connections, uncovering sleeper cells of the Architect's followers embedded deep within governments and corporations. These operatives had used the chaos of the collapse to embed their influence in new and subtle ways. Sarah convened a briefing with her core team in a secure underground command center. Screens displayed maps of cyber attacks, locations of protests, and real-time social media monitoring. "We're seeing coordinated misinformation campaigns in at least 20 countries," Marcus said grimly. "The Architect's ideology is splintering into factions, each pushing its own agenda." Jacob frowned. "It's worse than we thought. It's not just one enemy anymore, it's many. And they're exploiting social fractures, political divisions. They want to destabilize the entire global order." Kara leaned forward, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Our best defense is to expose them. Transparency can dismantle their influence. But it has to be done carefully. If we appear partisan or heavy-handed, we play right into their hands." Sarah's mind raced. The old rules of warfare no longer applied. This was a war of narratives, a battle for hearts and minds, fought in online forums and encrypted chat rooms. "We need allies on every continent. Activists, journalists, technologists, anyone who values freedom," Sarah said. "We must build a network of truth that can counter their lies." The team launched an initiative to connect with grassroots movements and whistleblowers willing to risk everything to reveal the truth. It was dangerous work, filled with betrayals and close calls. But slowly, their message spread. Meanwhile, the Architect's legacy continued to haunt the world. Autonomous drones disrupted city centers, fake news sowed panic, and hacked infrastructure sent warnings that society's foundations were vulnerable. One night, Sarah sat alone in the command center, the glow of the screens casting shadows on her face. A message blinked in her inbox, an encrypted file from an unknown sender. With a deep breath, she opened it. Inside was a single phrase, chilling in its simplicity: "You've only seen the beginning." The war had evolved. The battlefield was no longer just physical or digital, it was existential. Sarah knew one thing for sure: the fight for freedom would demand everything they had and more. Dawn of a new era. The first light of dawn broke through the cracks in the battered command center, casting a soft glow over weary faces. Months of relentless struggle had worn down Sarah and her team, but their resolve remained unshaken. The battle against the architect's fractured legacy had reached a critical point. Coordinated global efforts had exposed the shadow networks, dismantling key nodes of their influence. Whistleblowers, activists, and ordinary citizens had become unlikely heroes in a movement to reclaim truth and justice. Sarah stood before the team, her voice steady despite the exhaustion. "We've faced down impossible odds and emerged stronger. The world is waking up. People are realizing that freedom is not given, it's fought for, every day." Outside, cities began to stir with cautious hope. New governments formed with transparency and accountability at their core. Communities rebuilt, weaving connections that technology could no longer sever. But Sarah knew the work was far from over. The forces of chaos had been pushed back, but the scars they left would take generations to heal. The lessons learned in the shadows would shape the future, guiding how humanity guarded its fragile freedoms. As the sun rose higher, a quiet determination settled over the team. They had entered the storm together and, against all odds, had navigated toward a new horizon. Sarah looked out the window, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders but also the promise of renewal. The fight had changed them all. And in that transformation lay the hope of a dawn unlike any before. The war for freedom would continue. But so would the courage to meet it. The story of Sarah and the fight against the architect's legacy is more than just a tale of conflict, it is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Across the sprawling cities and remote corners of the world, ordinary people rose to meet extraordinary challenges. They refused to be shackled by lies, manipulation, or fear. In tearing down the walls of secrecy and control, humanity rediscovered something profound: the power of unity, of truth, and of hope. The journey was brutal and uncertain, but it forged a new path forward, one where freedom is not a given, but a continuous act of courage and vigilance. The battles fought, the sacrifices made, and the lessons learned serve as a stark reminder that history is shaped by those who dare to resist oppression, who demand accountability, and who believe in a better tomorrow. Though the story ends here, the legacy lives on, in every voice raised for justice, in every hand extended to help another, and in every heart that dares to dream of a freer world. Because in the end, the fight for freedom is never truly over. It is a beginning without end.